Just the abstraction of change. Give me some other nouns this side of the room.
Status?
Status. What other?
Performance.
Performance. Brian, Rachel? Pride. Okay. Rachel, did he steal your work? It was exactly my words. So weird, Brian, Rachel. What do you got on?
Arrogant.
Yeah. All right. I'm not going to turn my back. Keep going. What do we got? Age. What? Age. Let's also look at this, right? This is youth and old age, right? Success.
Structure.
Oh, yeah, that works. Everything's about structure in poetry, though, so. Okay, so not an exhaustive list, but clearly 8 points. There's no way you're going to be able to tackle all of those. So let's focus on the ones that are most obvious for many of you, and maybe we can combine some of these. Do you see where you could combine any of these? What do you think, Hannah?
Probably pride and arrogance.
Okay, so pride and arrogance are relatively similar. What else?
Probably.
Just jump out.
Status and success are tied together, I think.
Status and success kind of work.
Could change apply to all of them.
Change, yeah, change. Let's just do this.
I feel like you can connect age with status.
Yeah. Okay, status is up here, so we have. I'm gonna go just with that then. Connect success as well. Okay, so there are relatively fewer now, but we're still working within the same construct. I'm gonna go ahead and erase this in a second. But what I want you guys to think about is then how those concepts lead to, or how the structure rather of the poem help us to understand any of those concepts. So we're going to try to work within that same idea that every single time you look at the poem, you're looking at the structure of it first and potentially the rhyme scheme. So if you didn't have a rhyme scheme now, make sure in the future you look at the actual rhyme scheme. Go ahead, someone who has the rhyme scheme, what is it? Let me just go with one person. Who's Aaron? You got it?
A, B, C, B, C, A.
A, B, C.
B, C, A.
B, C, A, and you'll notice that that continues throughout the entirety of the poem. Not that same A, but what's up, Emmy?
I don't know if this is just like a slant line thing, but does own and brown?
Yeah, I mean it's one. It's not even a slant rhyme. Even if you tried an Australian accent, I don't know what that would sound like. I don't think so. So slant rhyme would work there. It's a little off, but it could be a little forced. If there's something you can make in it, great. If there's not, go with it because they're the same 3 letters. You know, from an assonant point of view, the O's are different. One's a short, one's a long. So go ahead. So then if you can make a connection, and we'll go to the structural break there, or the rhyme shift, that's something that's a little more key. So let's go ahead and try to do the whole piece. Obviously, there are 6 lines throughout. What have we already talked about in terms of her poetry that those 6 lines meant, or the similar rhyme scheme makes or connects to? What are some of the key, I mean, it kind of fits for almost everything. What do you think, Abby?
Like a structural society.
Okay. So we got structure in society. Structure was part of that. Age, arrogance. There's some sort of connections there. What would you say, Reza?
I think it's almost got like a musical body to it because the 5 or the 6 lines are almost like a meter, and it's always like timing in a specific way.
So now let's actually use just what Elena pointed out earlier, and then that's a W, by the way, for all those L's you've had today. That's a W. Musicality. What lines did you see clearly referencing Elena music?
Well, the one that I was talking about earlier is in the other poem, but
Oh, yeah, it is. That's true.
this one has like the word music exclamation point.
It does. Okay, so 27. Who does she reference? And what line? 36. Okay. She also references this young girl who's playing the. What line is that? 34. And you guys catch the drift, right? So there's obviously lines within them. There's probably more. There are indeed more. But I like Rez's concept of musicality and structure and musicality, not a dissonant symphony or anything like that. What do you think, Ms. Troy?
Being stuck in one mentality.
Okay, so I'm going to put static mentality. If you can use fewer words, it's always better. What's up?
Like the lines are in 6 and the rhyme is in 6, but the sentences don't actually fit into those 6.
Okay, so
So it's like not fitting into society.
So then we're going to go with the basically the paradox of that as well, right? So that the syntactic structure, the syntax, doesn't work within an ordered system. So there are enjambed lines, right? So let's just look at a couple of those enjambed, 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 enjambed. Ay, Dios mío. Yes, yes. Right? And then I would like to move this down, but this is recording. So then you keep looking, right? And jams, and jams, and then the final one not in jams. So let's just make a very strict, kind of, let's just look at the last thing of the poem. I'm being vague purposefully. What is the last thing on the page? Well, of the poem? A period, right? So she ends with a period, thus helping us to understand what? This is pretty much, this works for almost every piece of literature, every poem. What do you think, Emmy?
Well, that his relationship with this girl, like, could never happen.
Or just
Adding anything else.
Finality?
Done.
end. Finality is the best way to look at it. You can look at the finality of the relationship, the finality of the experience, the finality of thought, whatever that may be. Some poems don't end with punctuation, thus opening you up to
Open-ended.
ambiguity, open-endedness, whatever the opposite of finality is, right? Ephemeral nature of light, whatever. You just almost always those two kind of almost always those two concepts work in every piece of literature that you're looking at. So we have the musicality, the structure, we have the static mentality. Is there something just very simple about this system of 6-line stanzas, sestets, if you will? What do you think, Elena?
I thought it was interesting how the A and the A's like begin and end. So like it again kind of is paradoxical, as you said, to the enjambment that happens, because it's like this thought has ended, but the sentence keeps going on because like it's closed between the rhymes.
I see what you're saying. So that there's some sort of connection. There's a transition that occurs between the stanzas in a rhyming way, even though they may not necessarily. Is that, I don't know. Am I not saying that?
Well, I just like.
You're saying to lend and specified pride and blooms? What do you mean?
No, like instead of like ABC, it's like the A's are specifically at the beginning of end. So.
Oh, so you're saying because each of the ends.
Emphasizing the structure of the stanza.
That makes sense. Emmy, and then Lauren.
And then it's kind of like pedantic, but Mozart is known for 6 of his other sonatas.
And if you know that, that's brilliant. You want to add, like, some people in here are like, what did she just say?
Yeah.
Say it again.
So Mozart wrote a lot of famous sonatas, but the ones that he's most famous for 6 of them.
I mean, it sounds cool. It works. I have no clue if it's valid, but it makes sense. There's a connection. It just could be coincidence too, not ironic like Alanis Morissette's horrible song. What do you got?
Because there's like only one
Oh,
non-enjambed
I'm sorry, Lauren.
and only one non-enjambed stanza, right? It suggests like you've got 2 parts to it.
Yeah.
And right after that, there's obviously like the change going on with her and.
Okay, so there's clearly a shift. We'll talk about that shift in a moment. So we're still doing structure. I'm sorry, just what were you gonna say?
What I thought that Elena was saying was that the only 2 of the stanzas end with punctuation, the 4th one and the last one. So each stanza is leading into another stanza, even though the sentence may not end at the end of each stanza, and it ends more in the middle.
Yeah, so same thing. There's a shift here, and then obviously the end of the poem is the end of the poem. The other one for this one up here, this list that we've created, short list, is just very simply that there's order. Right? There's order to the way in which she does it. That's easy. That's an easy thing to see. Now, let's do the same weird blue deal. What's the paradox of this order? And how can you connect that to the topics of the poem? What do you think, Elena?
Well, the main character, Professor Albert, he's
Eisenbart.
Eisenbart. He's entering into this very orderly ceremony, it seems, with the prize giving, but his mentality throughout the entire beginning of it is very apathetic, and he thinks the whole ordeal is distasteful.
Okay, so we got the plot basically of the poem, and then you also have like his distaste. But how does his distaste for what he's doing connect to order? Make that a little more clearly. Make that point more clearly.
Well, he like the world that he's going.
Someone want to try to?
Can I find like a reference and go to?
Of course you may. So how does the order of the structure of the poem not, how is it not reflected, Ms. Wilcox, in the poem?
Because in the second half of the poem, after that shift, in like the last two stanzas, it's about the professor sort of being like shaken from his place of order and status, but the poem still keeps it like relatively throughout.
What do you got?
Well, you could say that he's kind of unhappy with the way things never change, the way society never changed, the status doesn't change. But then the second to last stanza, there's that one odd rhyme scheme, it kind of shifts. And that's kind of when he notices the girl for a moment, and that's kind of a shift in status and, I guess, culture.
What line specifically are you talking about when he notices the girl?
It says, suffered her strange eyes against reason
What
dark.
line?
33.
Okay, so keep going up. Now you can continue reading.
Oh, suffered her strange eyes against reason dark to take his stare with her to the piano, there to swap.
So keep going. Finish that sentence.
Her casual schoolgirls for a master's air.
What does that mean to swap her casual schoolgirl's air for a master's air, Abby?
He's kind of taking away her youth, I guess.
No. What?
She has like stopped being irreverent about it and is now, or like joking and stuff, and is now serious about it.
What do you got, Amy?
Well, she goes from being like somewhat out of her element to playing the piano, which is what she's really good at.
Right? So she's now a master at the piano, right? Because she is somebody who's been able to play this. Lauren, and then Wilcox, and then Miller. One,
Well,
Miller, two, I don't know.
In line 26, he said he shook indifferently a host of virgins' hands.
No,
So
quickly, you're gonna hate me for this. I'm gonna stop you. Who's he said? No one says anything here. He said. About whom are you speaking? Who wrote these poems? A female. Now, here's the thing. She brings up a good point. If you choose to make her the speaker, make that apparent, right? I don't. Professor Eisenbart, by the way, is from her first book of poetry. She writes 7, and then later on more poems about him, and he's the same character in all of the poems. He's a fictitious person, although she hung around with a lot of professors, so he's an amalgamation of a lot of the people she met in Australia, and then eventually in Tasmania. And so, if you choose to say that she's the speaker, or that Harwood creates this character, and then the who is referenced, what's that person called? The narrator. Narrator. So let's go back. So the narrator points out what?
that Professor Eisenbart shook the hands of girls whom he called virgins, and then
No, he doesn't call them virgin. No one calls anybody anything.
His hands are virgin. I mean, the hands are virgin.
That doesn't mean
he shakes
they're virgin.
he shakes what he believes are virgin hands. So
What's that mean, a virgin
looking
hand?
at their like youngness and naivety,
That would work. Keep going.
and then when the girl playing the piano swaps the casual school girls for a master's air, it's sort of looking at her not as a naive young girl, but as a master who can play the piano and sort of put him out of his element because of her age.
Okay, so she's now a master. She's technically a virtuoso. There's clearly a shift right here. What were you going to add, Miss Wilcox?
I was gonna add that her sort of shift in demeanor is sort of mirrored in line 41 when so she goes from like a naive schoolgirl to a master of piano, where the professor goes from this like stately and educated and kind of pretentious person to a fool.
And this is a paradoxical concept. That says demeanor, trust me. What is a sage fool? What is a sage? Not a smart person, a wise person, right? Just keep going, Wilcox.
I thought a sage fool sort of meant that, like Ms. Holmes said, one of the major themes was performance and how someone is still pretending to like do something that they're not. Like how in the beginning he's going along through the motions of the ceremony, but like secretly hating it. And so I thought that the sage fool was a reference to the fact that he is outwardly appearing very wise and scholarly, but in the inside he's been shaken and sort of switched.
And the same thing goes, let's take exactly what you said and juxtapose it with, or against rather, what Lauren said. She is doing the opposite, right? She's gone from this casual, indifferent school, potentially indifferent schoolgirl, to someone who is less naive and clearly, I mean, she turns and what does she do to her friends? She winks. I mean, you know, she's clearly got the upper hand, pun intended. So there's a couple words in here that we just want to kind of touch upon. Titian, what's Titian refer to?
Oh, so it's like a type of like dark brown red hair, and it becomes copper, which is not what that is, which is cool.
Okay, you keep going with that, Emmy.
It's also an artist, so Titian is an artist, so you could look at it from he's really famous for his kind of they're abstract, but they're still portraits, so it could be more of her like telling a story through the music.
Yep. And then obviously Elena pointed out on 127, music, right? Sorry, I lost it. We have this shift on 25. There's clearly a shift, and you guys have just referenced it in terms of the demeanor and the attitude of the schoolgirl, and then the demeanor and the attitude of the sage fool. How else does this poem flip convention on its head? You guys have just talked about personality, character. What do you think, Lauren?
Well, I thought in line 29, when the girl stands up and hitched at his stocking, winking at nearby friends, and then later, Professor Eisenbart is a sage fool trapped by music. I thought that it was sort of a sexual reference.
And what is the it that is a sexual reference?
I thought that the way that the speaker describes the girl feeling his voltage, feeling his hold from his calm age and power, that sort of switching the roles of the girl and the wise professor, because he sort of becomes a schoolboy, sort of not being able to control himself around the girl where she's not doing
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't necessarily go with sexual. There are clear references to it. You can make too much of it, but virgin hands is purposeful. She meant for you to not confuse the idea, but how are these hands virgin? How are these girls' hands virgin?
because they're young schoolgirls.
Yep, so they're naivete. What you may think that they would capitulate to this older professor, and yet one of them throws off that air. So there, she's flipping the concepts of sensuality, sexuality on its head, but she's clearly referring to some sort of lust that exists from the man to the girl. The girl's probably not lustful in return. But then this voltage, right? The hand is again full of this voltage, or what could you say that is? A spark, or also just straight up voltage refers to electricity, energy, passion, whatever. It doesn't matter what you say, as long as you make the connection. That analysis then helps. So let's look again at some of the conventions. We have this convention of power dynamics, right? We have this convention of arrogance. I mean, the girl becomes more arrogant than the man to some degree. I mean, you could argue against that, but that's kind of what you're saying. Abby, what would you say?
I guess it's kind of like a flip in like gender. Like you would assume that like stereotypical male presence dominates, but then she's a girl, and then it takes the power of the voltage, along with her youth.
Along with what?
I mean, her youth's just kind of another reminder of like the flip. Like she's a young girl, he's an older man.
Yeah, and I think the other attitude there is you look at this arrogance that the older man, you guys referenced that arrogance, right? And she seems to have a naivete that then changes later on. So that concept of age comes up in a variety of her poems. What other poems have we talked about before we get to you, Elena? Reference age or growth or... What do you think, Simon?
I mean, the earlier one with Professor Eisenbart, Daybreak, is like, it talks about age as part of that. And it's like that seems to be a thing with the Professor Eisenbart character.
Yeah.
His age.
He's feeling his gray hairs, if it were. Any other ones about age we need?
Maybe in the park, since like there's lovers long ago, so it's age time work.
Totally works. You could literally say anything and it would work, right? Glass jar, age, youth, older people, the relationship. What else? What do you think?
Space of a Dream.
Yep.
Boy kind of goes from, like, he learns how to get through his, like, how to, wait, sorry, that's the wrong one.
That's basically glass jar, okay.
how he like transitions from childhood to adulthood.
And there, just to bring up something I want to make sure you guys understand, Nicole brings up Glass Jar. There's clearly a male protagonist who is a young boy. So there, you probably wouldn't say Gwen Harwood is the speaker, right? Because she was never a young boy. So you just have to make sure that you're making a concerted effort to remain clear. All right, so you guys have kind of nailed some of the big pieces. Let's start looking in a little bit more specific way into how she uses. I'm sorry, Landon. I cut you off. Go.
Well, what I was gonna
Just say it.
reference things. Anyway, in line 35, he says speeches were made and prizes were given, or prizes given, which is passive, and that's kind of the end of his role as the honored guest in the poem. So going back to what Abby was saying, that kind of represents this shift in roles, from him being this passive honored guest in a position of power to being more under the influence of the girl's naivety.
Awesome, and that's really, I mean, obviously she doesn't use the passive voice very often. She even, oh yeah, it should shake you a little bit. It's really cool. And then, no pun intended, he shook indifferently a host, right? There are references to religion, time and again, specifically the opening prayer. Here, a host of virgin hands is not the host that a priest would bring to the altar. For those of you who are Catholic, you want to explain what the host is? Go ahead, Matt.
It's a symbolic body of Christ.
Yeah, it's transubstantiation, which just means that, blood turns into blood, but we're not going to go too deeply into that. But there are references to religion, but they're not necessarily, this isn't a religious poem. Obviously, some of these, you could take some of them out of context and talk about how the opening prayer doesn't need it. But don't go that far. You don't need to go that deeply into this, so you don't need to make too much of it. She just oftentimes has those references. Another major topic that she addresses all the time that is in this by name is Mozart. So she clearly talks about, especially as we'll see in Estuary, what? Music. Specifically, literally, explicitly, she does reference music. There also is a reference to classical art. You want to tell us about that?
Well, it's interesting because the thinker is a Greek statue.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
Statue. And she is mocking his pose by copying this statue. Anyway, and mimicry is often a form of appreciation. So first of all, he's appreciating the art, and she's mocking him because she's better at the art.
And not only that, but if you guys have probably seen this, there are myriad copies all over the world. My mom and dad have them as bookcase ends. Maybe your mom and dad do too. But we go back to just specifically what Emmy's saying. If he takes that role and mocks a copy of a copy, when she mocks it in mockery, right? It says it. Where is it? In mockery of her own. She's subverting what type. This is an allusion to classical. It's actually French art. Auguste Rodin is a French artist who copied a previous, version of it. How does that tie into this, the change in arrogance, the change in roles? What do you think, Isaac?
Art's subverting reason because
Okay.
thinking is Rodin, and Rodin is an artist. The poem is kind of about how music and art is more important than education.
Okay. And this is all about the awards, right? Think about other ways in which the mockery of classic art could be deemed as a power dynamic.
Well, this is obviously it's really fancy and expensive art, and it's high art,
Yeah.
And so in the mockery of that, she's saying that's ridiculous. But then she also recreates high art, so she doesn't dislike it in general, but just she dislikes his sort of way of approaching it. I don't know.
So the awkward irony here is that she's mocking high art and yet engaged in high art. What is the irony at hand? What do you think? What's wrong with her? What do we still see in her if you want to go a little bit deeply? There's a hypocrisy that exists in her. So a hypocrisy that may exist within does exist within all of us, right? We all want to pretend like we love, Marcel Duchamp and Dada and what he did for society, but then we're gonna go watch South Park, right? So that difficulty in balancing pop culture and high culture. Elena, or Aaron, did you want to say something?
I guess the role of the girl through the entire film is kind of just to stand out from the uniformity of the rest of them. She doesn't color hair. She's the only one that's looking at him when the rest of them are in prayer. And I guess the fact that she's kind of mocking and in a way questioning the tradition of classical art is another nod to how she just stands out.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the idea that she questions it, but is a part of it, it shows her she stands out. She's also the one who receives the award, right? And look at the award itself. I forget where it is. A couple of silver chased with curious harps.
You could also say that art literally overpowers education, because she's more powerful than like this educated man who's supposed to be responsible.
Oh yeah, that's good. Somebody, Miss Kenny?
I don't think she's mocking the art. I feel like she's more mocking him.
Okay. Well, and so how would you justify that in the poem?
Before it's underwritten mockery of his own. So I just feel like, she's staring at him, this person who comes in with a lot of confidence in her school at this ceremony, and I feel like it's less about what he's doing and more that he's the person who's doing it.
Did you guys in your TOK classes for art watch Jackson Pollock? Who the F is Jackson Pollock?
Yeah.
Do you remember that that guy who looked at the art and then he went
Yeah.
and he did this and he was like moving around. If you haven't seen it, I'll try to find that clip. But think about how that concept is kind of where she's coming from. She's looking at this professor, right? And professor carries such weight with it. So the same thing by referencing some of these other weighty, high arts minded or high minded concepts. There's a slight hint of not just irony, but also not mockery, but a little bit of like on Gwen Harwood's part. What is she illuminating for us about art itself, or about the way people see art, or about the way people see academia? What do you think?
How it's academia or structure, establishment versus art, and how art has the power to transcend people or show people a new way of being. Can I keep going with that?
Sure. Yeah. No. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because I don't know how well this holds up, but I think he's the embodiment of establishment because he's literally a professor. He's dressed in his robe is all pretentious and things.
Yeah.
And then whereas she is literally I know Titan painted woman with red hair, so she's literally a work of art, and she shows him a new way. And in that way, at the end, he's turned upside down literally in line 41. And so he's a new man. He knows different things.
Yeah. No. I love the way that you said something that you said there was really good. Not only establishment, but she subverts, like Gwen Harwood subverting the very role of the power in the poem. What's up?
I mean, if you wanted to be really analytical, the underwritten mockery.
No.
That I guess could be instead of mockery, more of appreciation maybe, because she's literally replicating what he's doing. Maybe she's trying to follow what he's doing. And I guess that kind of reveals with art and with people, there's always more than just the visual side, because obviously you would see her do that and think she's just making fun of him, but maybe deep down she's kind of insecure or she's
No, I think you're right. So the mockery is what mockery is a form of flattery, but here you're saying mockery is almost a form of insecurity, right? And that she's trying to just who's she performing for? Everybody, right? And we forget about the other women, headmistress and girls in the audience. Go ahead, Miss Wilcox.
I would argue that the professor, she's not mocking with the concept of classical art as a whole, but I think that the professor is imitating the statue in an attempt to claim more academic status, if that makes sense. The thinker is sort of synonymous with thought, and if you saw someone just sitting like this, you kind of want to make fun of them because it just looks a little pretentious. And I'm not sure how well the insecurity thing holds up with the fact that he's literally shaken by a form of her electric confidence, sort of in mocking him. She's and also she's the only one not bending down for the prayer, which I think is important. Just because that shows just sort of her defiance, just as a person.
And then we go back to one of the other things that Maddie said is that she is a work of art. She's being alluded. There's an allusion to this masterful artist, and so that in and of itself is defiance of the role. So Emmy, Summer, Abby, Choi.
I think I like what Ellie said, but also that the insecurity does stand because she takes things that should mean a lot to her, like performing in front of a lot of people, or even the prayer that's important in her society, and she thinks light of them. She doesn't entirely take them seriously. She winks as she goes up to perform, she holds her head up during the prayer, and she mocks the professor. So she takes serious things and makes light of them in order to kind of deflect that she can't truly, like, not appreciate, but like participate in them and know what they're doing for.
Okay. Somebody, Summer, I think you're next.
Yeah, I was also thinking, I think him posing like the thinker is important because it's another type of performance, you know? But like for the whole, like for the girls and also the headmistress, it's like a performance of deep thought and of like,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's an element to which like, it's in some ways it's become like almost primarily about performance and that like she's performing both as a piano and before there's an element of like performance for the group and then he's also performing for the group and she's better at performing than he is, right? And that's part of where her power comes from, is that she's like a more effective performer for the crowd. Than
For
he
the
is.
crowd, yeah, that's key. Was it Abby and then Maddie?
Emma was first.
I'm Emma.
Sorry.
I was gonna talk about like, I don't know if this is getting too deep, but like, the thinker is like a statue, so it's made of stone. I know that's really like, but like in that way, the professor's like, rudeness and establishment is like so like hardcore. It's like ironic that he would be shaken so easily from that.
Yeah. It's made out of brass, but
sorry.
no, you don't have to apologize. The idea that he is shocked, right? He's removed from his normal demeanor. I think works really well. What's up?
This is something small, but just like throughout the poem, we don't really see the girl or hear the girl's thoughts. We kind of just see it from the point of the man. And that could, I guess, tie along with the insecurity factor. Like we are only seeing who she is from the point of a male, which is like also kind of a power move. Even though he, I guess, is kind of insecure at the end too. But
Okay, so we've clearly established a couple more pieces of the poem. It's also about insecurity. Sorry, Nicole, you jump in.
I wanted to go back to kind of what Emmy said, how all perceive